Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We're going to finish up Edmund Ironside today. We've made it to the end and we're at the last monologue of the play, but there's some play that happens after this monologue does. So we'll finish up and then we'll chat about it for a little bit. And the piece that we're going to get to hear today is Edmund himself. Maybe sort of fitting that we end Edmund with an Edmund monologue. So he and Canutus have met on the battlefield, and it looked like their armies were going to continue to fight because, there's been a lot of back and forth. Canutus seems to have won the most recent battle, but Edmund seemed to have the upper hand in a lot of the previous battles. They met on the field, and Edricus, to try to get Edmund killed, steps in between the two armies and is like, wait a second, so many people have died in your names. Why don't the two of you either split the land or do a single combat thing, and whichever one of you is left standing will become the king of all of it. And they both agree to that. Edmund and Canutus both agree that they will. And Canutus's wife is like, no, you're not going to fight him in single combat. And he's like, yeah, I am, unless you want to take my sword and do it for me. And Edmund's stepmother, Emma, pulls him aside and she's like, look, you're the king. You're the leader of all these people. Everything depends on you. Like, you're fighting for more than he is. You have more to lose than he does. So are you sure that this is the best thing to do? Are you sure that agreeing to this battle is smart and responsible? And Edmund says, Madam, his life is even to him as dear as mine to me. Besides, he is a prince of noble blood and high resolved spirit. And if he were not, yet my cause being good, and justice on my side, I would not fear. Nay, could not with my honor, but accept the speech of Edric, and in single fight approve my title lawful, good, and right. Then, madam, be content, and you shall see, the God in whom I trust will succor me. Were he Goliath, I, the little king, I would not fear him on his knees to bring. But he hath rather cause to doubt of me, I being big and far more strong than he. So what Edmund is saying to Emma here is, don't worry, I got this. He's like, Canutus has a lot to fight for, and it's not like he's some rando off the street. He is a prince, so he's got some clout, he's got some responsibility on his shoulder, but Edmund goes back to his faith, which he has relied on throughout the whole play, saying, God has chosen me to do this, God has chosen me to lead, God will be on my side, and he continues to say that. And I think that it's interesting that the last few lines of this monologue are done in rhyming couplets. Just for what that often means in terms of a character's mindset or where they are. You often see rhyming couplets in the comedies, like take a look at A Midsummer Night's Dream or something like that. A lot of it is in rhyming couplets. So it's interesting that he falls into rhyming couplets at the end of this when he's like, you know what? I have to do this. It's the best. God's going to take care of me, and I'm not going to be afraid of him because I'm bigger and stronger and more fierce than he is. So after this speech, the two of them start to fight, and there's a little bit of talk over on the sidelines, like they shouldn't be doing this, and some cheering back and forth. But Edmund and Canutus are doing single combat, and it looks like Edmund is winning, and Canutus is like, hang on, just give me a minute to breathe. Just give me a minute to breathe. And Edmund's like, yeah, when you're dead, I'll let you breathe. And they keep fighting some more, and Canutus is like, just give me a second to breathe. Just give me a second to breathe. He's like, what, are you ready to yield? And he's like, no, I just need to catch my breath, and then we'll be able to keep fighting. So they keep fighting, and Edmund gets Canutus in a very compromised position, and Canutus is like, I yield. Here is either my hand or my sword. You can kill me, or we can be friends and split the country. And Edmund says, let's be friends and split the country. Who saw that one coming? But yeah, he honestly does. It's funny when Edmund says, like, yes, let's be friends, he talks about Canutus's lovely words that have shown him that the enmity between them is over. But Canutus really only had like 6 lines in there wherein he's like, let's call a truce here and move forward as equals, as partners. But then Edmund gets very effusive with the, I am yours and this land is yours and let's go find a map and you can pick which part of the land you want because, everybody that follows me now follows you. My people are your people. I am yours forever. Let's be friends in this whole thing. And yeah, it feels a little strange for the ending of a play of this magnitude, for it to end with two such bitter rivals becoming friends. But that is what happens. And Edmund turns to his general Alfric and he's like, how come y'all are just standing there? And Alfric has this nice, lovely speech. It's not long enough to qualify for this project, but he's like, the gist of that speech is that they are so overcome with joy and relief at not having to fight anymore that they're just like struck dumb and they can't do anything but be happy about the fact that this is all being resolved in a peaceful manner. And then we get just a quick little aside with Terkillus and Leofric, who, remember at the beginning, their sons were tortured and mutilated because they switched sides. And they're like, what about our sons? You remember when that happened? And they're like, yeah, we can still get revenge on them at some point. And then Edmund invites everybody to like go back and they're gonna literally take a look at a map and split up the country. And Edricus finishes off the play with like 4 or 5 lines where he's like, oh yeah, I'm coming. And he's like, yeah, this isn't how I wanted this to end. Now I'm gonna get revenge on the both of you. And that's the end of the play. So this also feels like maybe it was set up for a sequel that may or may not have ever happened. But yeah, this one is interesting to me. I think it's interesting that the scholars think that this likely was written by Shakespeare, and having done this whole project and read all of this stuff, I can definitely see that. I can see the word choice and the cadences and the subplots and where things are going. And even the illegal scene, even the one, just this scene comes out of nowhere where these 2 archbishops yell at each other about religion and loyalty and things like that. All of these things do oddly feel Shakespearean to me. This doesn't feel like a very significant departure from what we've seen in his other history plays and the way that he constructs things and so on and so forth. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is one that he actually wrote. What does surprise me a little bit is I just did a quick Wikipedia on Edmund Ironside and on Canute. These were actual men in the 1062, whatever. Canute the Great was a Danish man who the Danes had won England, and then they got chased out by Ethelred, who was Edmund's father, and then they tried to get it back, and that's sort of what this play is about. But reading up a little bit on Edmund Ironside, it feels like he was maybe a little bit ineffectual as a leader, and he was technically only king for about 6 months in the grand scheme of things. So to write this whole play where he saves England or doesn't save England, and which then also made me think that back in the day, back in the 1500s, whenever it was that Shakespeare was writing this, being a kind leader maybe wasn't something that was looked up to the way that I might be looking for kind leadership now in this time when this video is being made. So through my lens looking at this play, I see Edmund as the side that I want to win, and I see Edricus as the bad guy, and I see Canutus as the bad guy. But it's possible that wanting a strong, fierce leader who maybe had a little bit more manipulation, more manipulative skills about him, maybe that was actually a good thing. And this was supposed to be set up so that Canutus looks like the stronger, more capable leader, even though he doesn't have the physical strength, whereas Edmund is supposed to be set up to look weak and ineffectual because he's taking care of his soldiers and making sure that they get paid and all those things. So there's, I think, probably a lot to discuss in that from that angle. But yeah, I honestly would not be surprised if this one was actually written by Shakespeare, because it feels very in the same vein as a lot of his other history plays, aside from maybe the fact that it was written about a guy who was only king for 6 months. And that it ends not with a clear victory, but with a splitting of the country. In the actual history, Edmund Ironside took Wessex, and Canute the Great got, like, all of the rest of it. So, yeah, it feels maybe a little bit of a weird king to write about, but maybe because he was a weird king, that's why Shakespeare wanted to write about him. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Did it make sense? Who was your protagonist? Who was your antagonist? Which side were you cheering for the whole time? And was it a shocker to you that they ended up being friends at the end? And what do you think would go into a sequel if we're going to follow Edricus? Anyway, come on back tomorrow. We're going to start in on a new play. It's called Fair M, and I will see you then for that. Mwah.